For 800 years have I trained Jedi.
That's what Yoda said to Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back. When Luke was on Dagobah, he didn't know Yoda was actually Yoda. And of course, we saw the test, and once he realized Yoda was Yoda, the Grand Master that he was seeking this entire time, Yoda became impatient with Luke's impatience and didn't want to train him. And he said, for 800 years have I trained Jedi. Now, how old is Yoda when he dies? Just about 900 years old. So 900 minus 800, 100 years old. He started training Jedi at the age of 100. Now, Grogu is about 50 years old, and if I do my math right, he was with Luke for 2 years. Jon Favreau said he was 50 years old, and we found out he's 50 years old in the first season of The Mandalorian. About 2 to 3 years has passed now. 2 years or so. But let's just say 2 and be safe. Grogu is 52 years old. So how the heck is Grogu, who can't even speak, barely use the Force, going to train Jedi in 48 years? There are 2 different theories as to how he's going to do this. And I think that these will play in tonight's episode. Because I think after tonight, we may never see Grogu as the baby Grogu that we all know him to be. Regardless what happens, and these 2 theories are very different, but the outcome is generally kind of similar. We know nothing about Yoda's species, and this is exactly how George Lucas intended it. He didn't want us to know anything about him. Yoda was supposed to be this magical being that came in and out of the scene here and there to drop some knowledge or to, help accelerate the main character's story arc, character arc, etc. And that was what made Yoda so mystic and, strange and cool. And why does he talk like this? Where's he from? Who are his people? What's his planet? And it's been debated for years. So when we got baby Yoda, Grogu, in the first season of The Mandalorian, everyone lost their absolute minds because we now get to learn more about this mystical being who is literally the most powerful being for the Jedi. I don't think he was more powerful than Palpatine. And we now get to learn more about him and follow his journey. Now, if Grogu is 52 years old, this means he got 48 years. So to be able to train Jedi in 48 years means that he has to be extremely well-versed in the Force and have learned the Force at a very good level by this point. It seems very unlikely that he's going to be able to do that. I mean, the guy can't even speak. He can, use the Force a little bit and then he gets tired. So my theory, and I have 2 theories, but they generally have essentially the same outcome. And the theory is that he's going to have some sort of massive growth spurt that we have no idea about. Some crazy transformation. Now, it may be overnight. He may need to go into some sort of hibernation for like a couple weeks. We know nothing about Yoda's species. The second theory is that he will transform out of stress. He's in a stressful environment, lots of anger, lots of pain, and he metamorphosizes. He goes into a metamorphosis, much like a cocoon, much like a larvae would, and turn into a butterfly. Now, of course, he could go into a growth spurt, by the time we reach the Rey movie, because he'll be about 100 years old then, and we could very well get a more likely, in his 20s sort of Grogu. Now, of course, it's possible. What I think would make really interesting for tonight, since we know nothing about his species, is what if something were to happen to Din Djarin? Grogu goes through an unbelievable amount of stress, and he transforms, much like, a Super Saiyan would, when they transform into the Ozaru, which if you don't know, they would transform into these giant apes, like little Gohan. Little Gohan was a little boy, and he would transform into a giant ape. Now, I'm not saying that'll happen to Grogu, but I'm saying what if this amount of stress, something that he goes through, will allow him to accelerate his aging process to a point where he reaches a level of maturity that will allow him to then, run, jump, learn the Force much better, be able to wield a lightsaber, and not be, a baby anymore, not be a toddler. Maybe there is, 50 years of him being a toddler, and then there's about a week of him going through this growth spurt phase where he just absolutely accelerates and just grows up. I can see them wanting to make Grogu the future of Star Wars. I see that, he's definitely going to be around for a very long time, long after Rey, long after Din Djarin, and long after any of the characters, really. So if he lives to be 900 years old, just like Yoda did, considering he has the same genetics as Yoda, then I think he's going to be in all kinds of shows going into the future, which will be, hundreds and hundreds of years after the Skywalker saga, which personally I'm really interested in. I think would be really cool. Now, that being said, will we see Grogu as a little baby again? Now, here comes the thing, the dilemma, right? The Disney dilemma, in my opinion. Grogu is extremely lucrative because he's cute, he's a baby. Who doesn't love babies, right? Most people do. Now, what if he becomes a teenager? I think this could maybe affect their sales in a positive or negative way. He is now going to be at the point where He's no longer a cute little baby. You know, he's speaking. He's maybe got attitude. He's able to converse with people. He's able to also do more things, such as use the Force. He's able to now be a good addition to any sort of workforce, like the Jedi or the Mandalorian or whoever they may be. He can actually do stuff now. He's not a sack of potatoes, kind of useless almost, except for using the Force here and there and then falling asleep. I mean, let's face it, Baby Yoda's kind of a liability this entire time. All of this is because of Baby Yoda. So I think if they want to continue this show really well, they need to eventually have Grogu at some point, maybe season 6, season 7, have his growth spurt and mature a little bit, because otherwise it's just going to be the same old thing where Grogu is just this little baby. I think there need to be a bunch more seasons where he does grow a bit, where he does stay this age, this size. However, tonight we could actually see him maybe evolve into like a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old. You know, he doesn't have to be a baby forever. He can still be cute by being like 5 or 6 or 7. I think right now he's like, and he's a toddler. What age do kids speak? 3, 2? So I think right now he's like literally 1 year old, basically. 1 or 2, but he's able to do like a few more things because he's been around for a while. So now once he does mature and, you know, become this teenager, I guess, he's had about 100 years of data, of life, of experience. And so I think for this reason, he is much more mature, even if he looks like a teenage version of his species. And it's for this reason that I think Yoda was able to train Jedi at this age. So he may not be a master or, you know, even a knight, perhaps, but I think he was able to train Jedi because of his sheer ability to be alive for so long and to learn so many things from masters that are already probably long gone. You know, we have to remember he learned from Dooku, Yoda, Mace Windu. He learned from everybody. I mean, he's probably met Anakin before. Unless he was kept a secret in the Jedi Temple, which I highly doubt that's the case since the Jedi were protecting him. So I think tonight, something that could be really interesting is to maybe get Grogu in a really stressful situation where he's able to use powers that we've never seen him use before, like he used Force Choke on Cara Dune. What if he does something like that in tonight's episode? What if he does Force Explosion, you know, Repulse, where he does the Galen Merrick move, the Starkiller move, where he just goes in the air and Force goes out, disintegrates everyone. We really don't know the level of power that Grogu harnesses and his potential, right? We just know that Yoda was really powerful and that he can live to be a really old age. So I think tonight, something that could be cool is if Yoda eventually will have his growth spurt in some form or another. And I don't think he's like a regular human or species where it's going to take, you know, X amount of years and you grow each year. I think he relatively will stay the same for like 50 years and then boom, overnight, just has his growth spurt. Now, I understand tonight's episode is 38 minutes long, and with credits, that means it's going to be like 33 or so. So I think tonight's episode will show a level of stress for Grogu that we haven't seen before. And it'll either make him transform, you know, which is a very far-fetched theory, but one that I would like to see. I think it would be interesting, and to show that his species is actually quite different than how, you know, humans would age, should be, you know, over the years. He's 52 years old and he looks literally the same as he looked for like, you know, whatever, 20 or 30 years or so. Now, the idea of him having a growth spurt to save Din and his body growing through this excessive amount of stress, and a response to that stress would be to basically become larger and older or more mature, be able to do things, wield lightsabers and things like that. I mean, he's only got 48 years left, so there must be some sort of time in this 48 years where he does eventually, to the point where he can actually train with a lightsaber and train with the Force and do things that Yoda was able to do to be able to train other Jedi. Unless, of course, I'm mistaken and he was just training them in the Force because that's all he could understand. But at least he was, you know, being able to talk, I assume. I think he's going to have some sort of a stress response. His body will have some stress response. Will be able to like grow to a certain extent, you know, within an instant, or he'll be exhibiting some sort of crazy power that we have never seen before in Star Wars, which would be pretty cool, or for Grogu himself. So either way, I think Grogu is going to do some serious damage, and he's going to go through some sort of a cool character development, you know, in terms of either physical or, you know, power-wise. Now, as to what could happen for Din Djarin, I don't know. I really do kind of subscribe to the theory that his mind could be wiped. I don't think they'll kill him off. I just think that's a little bit, you know, as George said, you don't have to kill characters. It alienates the audience. Now, I think Din Djarin could have something happen to him where he, you know, gets his mind wiped, and Grogu's put in this situation where he has to act fast, and his body will respond in some sort of way, and that could be either to grow or to exhibit some sort of force power that we haven't seen before, and I'm looking forward to it. I want to know what you guys think will happen in tonight's episode. This is it. This is the final episode of the season. I don't know when we'll get the next season. Could be a year, could be 2 years. Heck, who knows if it gets canceled. I have no idea. I hope it'll be a good episode, and I hope to see you guys in the watch party tonight at 11:30 p.m. Pacific time and 2:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'll see you guys all there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you all on Twitter at RealSWTheory and on Instagram at Star Wars Theory. Until we meet again, may the Force be with you always.